Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. Wuthering Heights is a tale of intense love, revenge, and destruction set on the wild moors of England. The story revolves around the tumultuous relationship between Heathcliff, a brooding orphan, and Catherine Earnshaw, the headstrong daughter of the Earnshaw family who adopts him. Their bond transcends ordinary love, but Catherine marries another man, Edgar Linton, for social status, breaking Heathcliff's heart. This betrayal drives Heathcliff to seek revenge on all those who wronged him, leading to a cycle of cruelty and misery for both families. The novel, filled with Gothic elements and a haunting atmosphere, explores themes of passion, social class, and the destructive nature of vengeance, as it spans generations at Wuthering Heights in Thrushcross Grange. Let's deep dive into the book. Heathcliff's arrival and early life. The story begins when Mr. Earnshaw, the owner of Wuthering Heights, brings home an orphaned boy, Heathcliff, whom he found in the streets of Liverpool. Heathcliff's arrival disrupts the Earnshaw family, especially as Mr. Earnshaw begins to favor him over his own son, Hindley. Though Catherine Earnshaw, Mr. Earnshaw's spirited daughter, initially resents Heathcliff, they soon form a deep and inseparable bond. Hindley, however, grows increasingly resentful of Heathcliff, and when Mr. Earnshaw dies, Hindley inherits Wuthering Heights and degrades Heathcliff to the status of a servant, intensifying the tension in the household. Catherine and Heathcliff's bond. Catherine and Heathcliff share an intense, passionate connection that transcends friendship, yet their relationship is fraught with complexity. Their love is raw and consuming, yet it is marked by cruelty, jealousy, and emotional manipulation. Catherine desires social advancement, and despite her love for Heathcliff, she chooses to marry Edgar Linton, a refined and wealthy neighbor from Thrushcross Grange. This decision devastates Heathcliff, and it becomes a defining moment in the novel, setting off a chain of events driven by vengeance. Catherine admits to Nellie, the housekeeper, that marrying Heathcliff would degrade her, despite her profound love for him, illustrating the tension between love and social expectations. Heathcliff's return and revenge. After learning of Catherine's engagement to Edgar, Heathcliff disappears for several years, returning later as a wealthy and sophisticated man. His return marks the beginning of his campaign for revenge against those who wronged him, particularly Hindley and Edgar. Heathcliff's first act of revenge is to manipulate Hindley, now a broken and alcoholic man, into gambling away Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff also marries Edgar's sister, Isabella Linton, not out of love, but to spite Edgar and gain control over the Linton family. Heathcliff's desire for vengeance consumes him, and his cruel actions lead to the suffering of those around him, including his own wife and future generations. Catherine's decline and death. Catherine's marriage to Edgar brings her wealth and status, but she remains deeply unhappy, torn between her love for Heathcliff and her obligations to Edgar. Her health deteriorates as she becomes increasingly unstable, emotionally torn by the two men in her life. The intensity of her feelings, coupled with Heathcliff's tormenting presence, drives Catherine into a feverish state, and she eventually dies after giving birth to her daughter, also named Catherine, Cathy. Her death devastates both Edgar and Heathcliff, but Heathcliff's grief is tainted by anger as he feels betrayed by Catherine's choice to marry Edgar. Catherine's death fuels Heathcliff's further descent into cruelty. Heathcliff's control over Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange. After Catherine's death, Heathcliff's obsession with vengeance continues. He manipulates Hindley's son, Hareton, into growing up uneducated and treated like a servant, as Hindley had done to him. Heathcliff also gains control of Thrushcross Grange after the death of Edgar Linton, marrying his son Linton to Cathy, Catherine's daughter. Heathcliff forces Cathy into this marriage despite her disdain for Linton, all in an effort to consolidate his power and exact further revenge on the Linton family. Heathcliff's control over both Wuthering Heights and Thrushcross Grange symbolizes the extent of his vengeance, which poisons both households for a generation. Cathy and Hareton's relationship. Amid Heathcliff's reign of cruelty, a new generation begins to emerge. Cathy, the daughter of Catherine and Edgar, initially despises Hareton, seeing him as an uncouth and uneducated servant. However, over time, they begin to form a bond. Cathy teaches Hareton to read, and they develop a romantic relationship, which contrasts sharply with the destructive passion of their predecessors. Their relationship represents the potential for healing and reconciliation after years of hatred and revenge. As Cathy and Hareton grow closer, the cycle of vengeance that Heathcliff perpetuated begins to break, offering a glimmer of hope for the future of Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff's decline and death. Despite achieving his revenge and gaining control over the properties and families that once wronged him, Heathcliff becomes increasingly disillusioned and haunted by memories of Catherine. He confesses that he sees her spirit everywhere and longs to be reunited with her. His obsession with Catherine transcends his desire for revenge, and he loses interest in continuing his cruel manipulations. Heathcliff's health deteriorates, and he dies alone, seemingly willing himself to death to join Catherine in the afterlife. Heathcliff's death marks the end of the destructive cycle that had plagued Wuthering Heights, allowing the next generation to live without his oppressive influence. The resolution and new beginning. After Heathcliff's death, the dark atmosphere that had dominated Wuthering Heights begins to lift. Cathy and Hareton, now in love, plan to marry and move to Thrushcross Grange, symbolizing a new beginning for both families. Their union suggests that the cycle of revenge, hatred, and suffering has finally ended, and the future promises reconciliation and peace. The novel concludes with a sense of closure, as Cathy and Hareton's relationship offers hope for a brighter future, free from the destructive forces that had plagued their parents and grandparents. Gothic elements and themes. Wuthering Heights is infused with Gothic elements, from the eerie and desolate setting of the moors to the presence of ghosts and supernatural forces. The novel explores themes of intense passion, revenge, social class, and the conflict between love and duty. Heathcliff, with his dark and brooding nature, represents the embodiment of the Gothic anti-hero, driven by a destructive love that transcends life and death. Catherine, too, is a complex and contradictory character, torn between societal expectations and her deep emotional bond with Heathcliff. Together, they embody the novel's central theme, the destructive power of unrestrained passion. Let's meet together the main characters of the book. Heathcliff is the dark, brooding anti-hero of Wuthering Heights, and his character embodies the novel's themes of passion, revenge, and obsession. Introduced as an orphan brought into the Earnshaw family, Heathcliff forms a deep, almost spiritual bond with Catherine Earnshaw. However, when she marries Edgar Linton, Heathcliff's love turns to bitterness, and he becomes consumed by a desire for vengeance. Over the course of the novel, Heathcliff's actions lead to the destruction of both the Earnshaw and Linton families. His character is complex, driven by intense emotions and a longing for the unattainable, particularly in his obsession with Catherine, even after her death. Catherine Earnshaw is a passionate and headstrong woman whose love for Heathcliff is both her greatest strength and her downfall. Despite her deep bond with Heathcliff, Catherine chooses to marry Edgar Linton, a decision motivated by her desire for social advancement and security. This choice leads to her emotional torment, as she remains torn between her love for Heathcliff and her obligations to Edgar. Catherine's fiery temperament and selfishness contribute to the cycle of conflict and destruction in the novel. Her death becomes a turning point in the story, as Heathcliff's grief and obsession with her memory drive much of the plot. Edgar Linton represents the civilized, refined world in contrast to the wild, untamed passion of Wuthering Heights. He is gentle, kind, and devoted to Catherine, but his love for her is overshadowed by her connection to Heathcliff. Despite his best efforts, Edgar cannot compete with the intensity of Catherine and Heathcliff's relationship. His marriage to Catherine is marked by her emotional turmoil, and after her death, Edgar is left to raise their daughter, Cathy. Edgar's character serves as a foil to Heathcliff, highlighting the differences between the world of Thrushcross Grange and Wuthering Heights. Isabella Linton, Edgar's younger sister, falls in love with Heathcliff, despite his cruelty and indifference toward her. Naive and sheltered, Isabella is blinded by her infatuation and marries Heathcliff, only to suffer greatly at his hands. Heathcliff's marriage to Isabella is purely a part of his revenge scheme against Edgar, and he treats her with contempt. Isabella eventually escapes from Heathcliff and raises their son, Linton, away from Wuthering Heights. Her character represents the consequences of misplaced affection and the dangers of falling for someone as destructive as Heathcliff. Hareton Earnshaw is the son of Hindley Earnshaw and the rightful heir to Wuthering Heights. However, after Hindley's downfall, Heathcliff takes control of Wuthering Heights and raises Hareton as an uneducated servant, mirroring the way Hindley once treated Heathcliff. Despite his rough upbringing, Hareton possesses a kind heart, and he eventually forms a bond with Cathy, Catherine's daughter. Their relationship marks the potential for healing and reconciliation, as Hareton and Cathy's love contrasts with the destructive relationships of the previous generation. Hareton's character represents the possibility of breaking the cycle of hatred and revenge that has dominated Wuthering Heights. Cathy Linton, the daughter of Catherine Earnshaw and Edgar Linton, inherits her mother's strong will and rebellious spirit. Initially, she is spoiled and headstrong, but she grows into a compassionate and resilient young woman. Cathy's life is shaped by the legacy of the conflicts between the Earnshaws and the Lintons, and she is manipulated by Heathcliff into marrying his son, Linton, as part of his revenge plan. However, after Linton's death, Cathy finds love and companionship with Hareton, and their relationship offers hope for a brighter future, free from the bitterness and hatred of the past. Let's explore together the main themes and concepts of the book. Revenge and destruction. One of the central themes of Wuthering Heights is the destructive power of revenge. After being wronged by Hindley and betrayed by Catherine's marriage to Edgar, Heathcliff embarks on a path of vengeance that spans generations. His desire for revenge consumes him and leads to the ruin of both the Earnshaw and Linton families. Heathcliff's cruel treatment of Hareton, Isabella, and even his own son, Linton, demonstrates how revenge perpetuates suffering. The novel shows that revenge, while initially satisfying for Heathcliff, ultimately leaves him empty and alone, suggesting that it is a corrosive force that destroys both the avenger and those around them. Passion and obsession. The novel is centered on the intense and obsessive love between Heathcliff and Catherine. Their passion is not portrayed as pure or romantic, but rather as a destructive force that consumes both of them and causes misery for those around them. Catherine's famous declaration that Heathcliff is more myself than I am illustrates the depth of their bond, yet their love leads to selfish choices and emotional torment. Heathcliff's obsession with Catherine continues even after her death, driving his actions and ultimately leading to his own demise. The novel explores how unchecked passion can lead to destructive outcomes. Social class and inequality. Class differences play a significant role in Wuthering Heights, influencing the relationships and motivations of the characters. Heathcliff's low social status as an orphan is a source of tension throughout the novel. Despite his bond with Catherine, Heathcliff is constantly reminded of his inferior position, which fuels his resentment and desire for revenge. Catherine's decision to marry Edgar Linton, who represents wealth and social refinement rather than Heathcliff, reflects the pressures of social class. The novel critiques the rigid class structures of the time, showing how they contribute to the character's unhappiness and sense of alienation. Nature and the supernatural. The wild, untamed landscape of the moors is a powerful symbol in the novel, reflecting the character's emotions and inner turmoil. Wuthering Heights itself, with its stormy and windswept setting, represents the dark and tumultuous nature of the characters' lives. In contrast, Thrushcross Grange symbolizes order and civilization. The supernatural also plays a key role, particularly in the form of ghosts. Heathcliff's belief that Catherine's spirit haunts him and his longing to be reunited with her in death underscores the Gothic atmosphere of the novel. The supernatural elements add to the sense of mystery and foreboding that permeates the story. Generational conflict and inheritance. Wuthering Heights spans 2 generations, and the novel explores how the sins and actions of one generation affect the next. Heathcliff's desire for revenge extends beyond his own life, as he seeks to control and ruin the lives of the children of those who wronged him. However, the second generation, represented by Cathy and Hareton, eventually breaks free from the cycle of hatred and revenge that defined their parents' lives. Their relationship offers hope for a more peaceful future, suggesting that love and understanding can transcend the destructive legacies of the past. Let's talk about the author. Emily Brontë, born in 1818 in Yorkshire, England, was an English novelist and poet best known for her only novel, Wuthering Heights, 1847. Brontë grew up in a literary family, alongside her sisters Charlotte and Anne Brontë, both of whom also became famous writers. Wuthering Heights was initially met with mixed reviews due to its dark themes and complex characters, but it is now considered one of the greatest works of English literature. Emily Bronte's unique narrative style, use of Gothic elements, and exploration of intense emotions have made Wuthering Heights a timeless classic. Brontë died in 1848, shortly after the novel's publication, but her work continues to be celebrated for its originality and depth. Sincere thanks for watching. If you found this summary helpful, consider taking a moment to hit the subscribe button, like or share the video. If you have any feedbacks or book requests, make sure to leave a comment. Regardless, I wish you a great day.